Hey, what's going on everybody? My name is Monatui, coach of the Tampa Bay Luxrays, and today I'm bringing you guys the NPL Season 7 Week 3 match versus Matty Brolick, coach of the St. Louis Reshirams. If you've not done so already, please check out his YouTube link in the description below. He is a fantastic battler, one of the best in the format, and I highly recommend checking him out. So I have an entire team builder dedicated to my team. However, for a quick rundown, we have our 3 attacks, Quick Attack, Toxic, Mega Lopunny. We have our Swords Dancing, Life Orb, Mimikyu. We have our Choppleberry, 3 attacks, Rocks, Tyranitar. We have our Violite, SD Roost, Dual Stab, Scyther. We have our Specially Defensive, Speedy, Gliscor, and we have our fully physically defensive Toxapex with the Pin Missile for his Hoopa Unbound, but unfortunately, as you can see, he actually did not end up bringing Hoopa Unbound, which definitely makes sense versus my team. Like, especially with the team that I brought, everything on my team naturally outspeeds it bar the Toxapex. And the Tyranitar can take a hit from it and possibly Pursuit Trap it or hit it with the Crunch. Toxapex has the Pin Missile, obviously, so it wasn't that big of a threat to my team. It makes sense as to why he didn't bring it. He did bring his dual Psychic Wall Core. He did bring the Crabominable, as you can see there, which is actually a pretty big threat to my team. It does get coverage to a KO or Oko my whole team, which is always scary, even though my whole team does outspeed it. Scolipede is probably the biggest offensive threat right there next to the Crocodile as well. Cresselia obviously is going to be annoying for my Lopunny, but I do have T-Tar for that, and then the Blastoise can be annoying for my team except for my Toxapex, so I have to keep my Toxapex around for that Blastoise. Regardless, let us just get this game started. As you can see here, he's going to lead right with his Blastoise, and I'm going to lead with my Scyther. I don't want to take a Scald or an Ice Beam to the face, so I'm going to switch right out into my only switch into this thing being my Toxapex, as he is going to go right for that Scald. And now, expecting him to predict my Toxic, I'm actually going to pull a switch back out into my Scyther as he goes into Bronzong. And the reason I picked Scyther to go out into rather than something along the lines of Tyranitar, which will be able to crunch this thing or Pursuit Trap it, is Tyranitar does allow in the Crocodile, which is a bit of a threat to my team. Since I don't have my Toxic Orb up, I don't want him knocking off my Gliscor. But also, me going into my Gliscor is going to be able to, that is going to be able to put in a lot of offensive pressure versus his team, because unless he has Rock Slide, he will not be able to hit me. Gyro Ball does absolutely nothing. Psychic or whatever does absolutely nothing, so unless he has Rock Slide, he won't be able to touch me, and even Rock Slide is not going to do that much. I can set up a Swords Dance, live the Rock Slide, roost up, take the next Rock Slide even better because I'm no longer a flying type, and then he's going to be forced to switch out and lose a Pokemon essentially, because I don't think he'd be running Rock Slide on a Scolipede. He needs Aqua Tail, he needs Earthquake, he needs Mega Horn, he'd like Poison Jab. I don't think he'd be running Rock Slide on Scolipede just for Scyther, and Scyther actually outspeeds the rest of his team and hits it all super effectively, bar the Bronzong, which I do beat 1v1 like I mentioned. So I'm going to pull that double into my Scyther, and I'm going to set up the Swords Dance, and he stays in. I'm expecting it to get up rocks, but he actually just goes for the Hypnosis, which I was not expecting whatsoever. This means that I am now asleep, and I have to burn the first turn of sleep here, as he sends in his Mega Blastoise. I'm going to stay asleep for the second turn, unfortunately. However, he is going to go for the Scald. It's not going to do too much damage because of Scyther's natural bulk. But as you can see here, we're not actually going to do half. We're going to do about half with the Bug Bite here. And this is actually a roll. Bug Bite at +2 to a fully physically defensive Mega Blastoise, which he is, has about a 50% chance to 2 KO him. As you can see, we got about a mid-roll on this turn, so depending on rolls on the next turn, I will be able to knock him out and do a lot of damage to his team. As you can see here, we do go for the Aerial Ace, but he lives on 1%, goes for the Scald, and here he will be able to burn me, which will allow him to knock me out. Now that is a little bit unfortunate for me, just because Scyther actually completely wrecked his team. Like, as you can see, if we were actually able to 2 KO him there, Scolipede, I believe, would not have been able to knock me out with Poison Jab. Even if it did, it had to be Life Orb, and that means he's taking Life Orb damage, which is really nice for my Mimikyu later on, as well as my Lopunny's Quick Attack. So if he did not knock me out with Scolipede, I actually just 6-0'd his team at that point. Bug Bite knocked out Crook, and Bug Bite knocked out Cress. I could have roosted up versus the Cresselia, I could have roosted up versus the Bronzong. I could have knocked out the Crabominable, but regardless, that is obviously damage rolls, and it was a 50-50 chance, plus, you know, Scald burning me, it's just Scald, no big deal. And he also, before I go on, he did offer, like, a rematch at this point, which is something Matty likes to do whenever there's hacks going one way or another. He'll offer, like, hey, do you want to do a rematch? And I declined. Not only because I don't really like doing rematches, but also, like, it's... Oh, I just moved the screen. But also, it was entirely my fault that I risked my Scyther. If I wanted to, I could have just made the safe play and go out into my Toxapex and roost up later on versus the Bronzong or the Cresselia if I wanted to, but I decided to stay in, risk the roll, risk the burn, and I ended up paying the cost for it. But Regardless, I can go into my Mega Lopunny here, and I'm just going to go right for the Adamant Return. Nothing really wants to switch into it too happily. Even this Bronzong is taking chip damage that I'm very happy with, and because he has not leftovers, that damage is there to stay. And now what I'm going to do is go right out into my Tyranitar, as he is going to get up his Stealth Rocks, as I will proceed to do the same thing on the following turn. And as you can see, he misses the Hypnosis here. That's fair. You know, he got the Skull Burn, he misses the Hypnosis, the hacks balanced out relatively evenly. Because Blastoise was his hazard removal, he is going to sack it off to the Rocks, because obviously he won't be able to switch it in later on. And now he's going to go out into Crabominable. Now, based on, not really based on anything, but based on the fact that I have a Toxapex in the background, which is pretty much my only switch into this thing, or my only potential switch into this thing, he can go for one of two plays. Or I'm thinking he's going to go for one of two plays. He could potentially go for the Power Up Punch in order to hit my Toxapex and then knock me out with a +1 Life Orb Earthquake on the following turn. Or he's just going to go right for the Earthquake, because Earthquake will be able to hit my Tyranitar very hard, it'll hit my Toxapex for a 2-KO when it comes in, and it'll hit everything else on my team bar the Gliscor, which I would not switch into an Ice type. So, expecting him to go for either the Earthquake or the Power Up Punch, both of which I can live. The Power Up Punch I can live because I have the Chopper Berry. I'm going to stay in, go for Stone Edge, which is a 2-KO. He is going to reveal that Power Up Punch. We are going to live it because of the Chopper Berry, and now, as long as I hit my next Stone Edge, which as you're going to see here, we are able to get rid of this Crabominable and get rid of a really big threat to my team. I was more so expecting the Earthquake coming from Crabominable, just because I did have the Toxapex, and it, you know, Earthquake obviously is a good neutral move against my Tyranitar. It wouldn't have Vocode me regardless. Which meant that staying in was still a very good play, unless he did end up going for that close combat, because it still kills me through the Chopple Berry. But again, with my Toxapex in the back, I didn't think he'd go right for close combat, because that gains me a little bit of momentum. And I don't believe close combat plus Earthquake would have been able to knock out Toxapex, and he would have been at -1 special defense, and I would have been able to hit him with a Skull, potentially burn him and whatnot. So I felt like he was going to make the play that could have potentially gained him a little bit more momentum. But regardless, we are able to get rid of Crabominable. He is going to go out into his Crocodile here. He does reveal the Intimidate, and we are going to switch right out into our Gliscor, as it is pretty much our only switch into this thing, as he's going to reveal the Bulk Up, which is a bit scary. I do have the U-turn to hit this thing, but with him being at +1 defense, and with me being you know, uninvested in attack, he's going to do a lot to me with Aqua Tail. I'm only going to do a little to him with the U-turn, but I can go out into my Mega Lopunny and force him out as I go for the low kick. And as you're going to see here, he switches into Crest on the low kick, and I'm actually okay with staying in and taking a Psychic. I don't think he'd Thunder Wave because I do have Gliscor, so I'm going to actually go for the Toxic, as I believe he reads that very well and goes right back out into his Bronzong, being immune to the Toxic and threatening me with Psychic Stab or just Gyro Ball in general. So what I'm going to do is go out into my Tyranitar to potentially take a Psychic or a Toxic or whatever he wanted to do. And as you're going to see, he actually pulls a double, predicting my Tyranitar into his Crocodile, meaning I have to stack a Pokemon to this thing. I actually decided to stack off my my Gliscor at this point. It did its job. There's no Hoopa here for it to U-turn out on. It did its job relatively well, and it's already pretty low, and I don't really see myself being able to roost up against too much. I can deal with the Scolipede with my priority. So what I'm going to do is go out into my Mega Lopunny, click Adamant Return once again. He can switch in Bronzong as he does, but that is perfectly okay with me, because as you're going to see, he is now just barely out of range of Adamant Low Kick from my Lopunny. So what I'm going to do is go T-Tar, because I can click Pursuit and be able to knock this thing out, but he actually goes for Hypnosis. And what I can do now is actually switch out into my Toxapex, because I don't want to sack off my Tyranitar yet. I want to make sure that he cannot Hypnosis anything else on my team. He hasn't shown an item yet. It could be Cassib Berry, it could be Colbur Berry. I don't want it to be Cassib and live a hit from my Mimikyu and be able to break its disguise. So what I'm going to do is go for the Scald with my Toxapex on this thing, eat my Pyapa Berry on the Psychic, and then we are going to be able to put him in range of Mega Lopunny's Low Kick. I know I went through a lot of turns there, or I went through that pretty fast, but basically, I let my Tyranitar get put to sleep, so that it is sleep fodder. He cannot Hypnosis anything else on my team. After that, I went right out into Toxapex on the predicted Gyro Ball, or actually as what he ended up having, Iron Head. Because I was able to take that with the Pyapa Berry. I took the Psychic very easily, and I was able to get off a little bit of chip damage with Toxapex's Scald, so that it was put in range of my Mega Lopunny's Adamant Low Kick 100% of the time. So now things are looking very good for Mega Lopunny. Mega Lopunny kills Crocodile, it can do a lot of damage to Crest at this point because it's relatively low, and it can do a lot of damage to Scolipede, and I can potentially pick that off with Quick Attack after some Life Orb hits, as well as a couple Rock Switch-ins. Regardless, As you can see here, I went for Recover as he sent in his Crocodile. I'm physically defensive, I can live even a crit Earthquake, so I'm going to stay in and just go for the Scald. I don't get a burn, unfortunately. A burn would have meant that I could have recovered up there, but I am fully okay with it because now I see that with this Crocodile weakened and with the fact that it is not Choice Scarf, I actually do have a very easy path to victory here, and that is going to be with my Mimikyu. So as soon as I get in that Cresselia, I will be able to go right out into my Mimikyu, start setting up, and potentially win this game. So as you can see here, we do knock out the Crocodile with Return, and he is going to send in Cresselia. I do actually want to sack off my Mega Lopunny here. I don't want to go out into Toxapex and give his Scolipede a chance to set up. I just want to go into my Lopunny, sack it off to the Psychic plus the Sand, and then what I can do is go out into my Mimikyu. And now, Scolipede has not taken any damage. Assuming it's not all that bulky, assuming it's mostly speedy and whatnot, he has to have a lot of HP for this calc not to be correct. But I need to get up to +4 in order to knock him out with Life Orb Shadow Sneak. So I need to get up 2 Swords Dances in order to knock that thing out with Shadow Sneak. This will obviously go down to +2 Shadow Claw, and the Bronzong will go down to +2 Shadow Claw, even if he's Cassib Berry at this point. And Cresselia is going to be very good setup fodder for me, because I can set up versus any form of Cresselia. Even if he goes for Lunar Dance, it's not that big a deal. I can just Shadow Claw the Bronzong a couple times, hit Scolipede with a Shadow Sneak, and then go into Toxapex afterwards, live the Earthquake, and knock it out with Scald. That's worst case scenario, assuming he's Lunar Dance. The only other way he can potentially win this game and stop my Mimikyu from sweeping him is if he has Thunder Wave on his Cresselia. He goes for it here, and he gets a couple full paras going his way, because essentially I'd go for Swords Dance, he'd go for T-Wave. He would then outspeed me on the following turn, go for Psychic to break my Disguise as I get up my my next Swords Dance, but then I'd be able to knock him out with Shadow Sneak, and I'd be able to knock out the Scolipede and Bronzong with Shadow Sneak afterwards. So he would have needed, if he did have Thunder Wave, he would have had to go for it there. He would have to go for it here, and he would have to get a full para on the turn that I tried to attack the Scolipede or attack the Bronzong. So as you're going to see here, you're going to see what happens. I go for the Swords Dance. He actually ends up just going right for the Psychic, which leads me to believe that he does not have the Thunder Wave. So as you're going to see here, our Disguise is going to break. However, we are definitely out of range of another Psychic. We can live the Psychic, and we can live a couple recoil hits afterwards. So what he's going to do is play for my choke and just attacking him, but that is not what I'm going to do. I'm going to go for another Swords Dance. I know I outspeed this thing 100%. Custat Berry is also unreleased, so we are going to knock him out easily through the Cassib Berry, and now what he is going to do is go out into his Scolipede, hope that he can live the Shadow Sneak. Unfortunately, he cannot, because we are at +4, and now what we will be able to do is after knocking out the Scolipede, he's going to go into his Cresselia, and we can knock that thing out with the Shadow Claw as well. So that is going to be a good game to Maddie. A little while ago in my comment section, somebody in my comment section was looking for my reasoning as to why I drafted Mimikyu. And this is part of the reason. It sets up really easily, and it sets up against a good number of different teams. It sets up very, very well, especially against passive mons, because you have two options. You can either status it, which does cripple it a little bit, but then it's still behind a Disguise, meaning you can take a hit, or you can attack it, break its Disguise, but guarantee that it can get a setup going. As you can see here, it just really, really did a lot of damage to his team. Like, he has no Ghost plus Fairy resist. There's nothing on his team that resists both stabs. Priority versus his team was really good. Once I got up to +4, Scolipede was knocked out after rocks, which is really nice. Obviously, it tears down bulky Psychics. Cresselia was no match for it. It outsped the Crocodile even, which is really nice. Even though I didn't need it to outspeed the Crocodile, it could have if it wanted to. This was just very, very useful mon this game, and it's one of my favorite mons of Gen 7, and I'm really looking forward to using it for the rest of the season. Regardless, enough on Mimikyu. This was a very good game played by Maddie. There wasn't too much he could do differently during this game. I feel like I definitely had a little bit of the team matchup, for sure. Like, Mega Lopunny plus Mimikyu put in a lot of work versus his team. I had a pretty good counter to everything on his team. Like, my Toxapex was able to wall his Blastoise. If he didn't burn my Scyther, I just kind of 6-0'd him, which was kind of funny, but thankfully for him, he was able to get the burn onto that. The only real play he could have made differently was to go for close combat onto my Tyranitar, but him going for Power Punch was not a bad play whatsoever. Like if I wasn't Choppleberry, Power Punch actually would have just OHKO'd my Tyranitar, because as you saw, Power Punch did a little bit over half the first time without the Choppleberry, or with the Choppleberry rather, so it would have been able to knock me out without the Choppleberry, and obviously he didn't know that I was Chopple at that point. And also, if he had gone for close combat, if he had just gone for the safe play, and I did go for my safe play, which was going into my Toxapex, then he would have lost some momentum, because I could have hit something with a Scald, potentially burned it. I could have hit something with a Toxic that wasn't the Bronzong. You know, like if he went into Cresselia at that point, I could have Toxic'd it, which would have been really nice for me. So he was put into kind of a tough spot just because of my prep as well as just my team matchup. There wasn't really too much he could have done. You know, I had all of the cards in my hand and I just had to play them right, and I ended up doing it, and this loss wasn't really anything to do with Maddie playing poorly. Maddie played fine, but my team and my prep just kind of beat him this game. Regardless, thank you guys very much for watching. I hope you all enjoyed. I'm very happy with this win. However, next week we have to go up against two-time champion Gypsy King, so of the Sydney Sharpedos. So that is something I am definitely both terrified of, but also looking forward to, and I hope you guys are as well. So without further ado, thank you guys very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next game.